there's obviously a whole boom of podcasts happening, and what we've discovered in later seasons of the second season of the show is that when you mix talk and audio, I love it. It's great. It's like people get tired of hearing us speak, and then okay, let's cut to this area of the song that we were just discussing. And with Spotify now, you could just go right to it. And I think people are going to, that listen to the podcast, the old Count Rockula podcast, are going to dig that, because rather than saying, oh, do I know that song? I might have heard the song we're talking about. It's like, no, we're going to play it for you. We're going to play you the clip of exactly what we're talking about.
Welcome to part 2 of my discussion with Jon from the Count Rockula Podcast. If you haven't heard the first part, go back to episode 1, listen to Jon talking about growing up, how his father influenced his music. On this episode, we talk about Jon's love of the current Springsteen music and a little bit about his podcast. You mentioned that you tend to be more, your heart belongs to a lot of earlier stuff. Tell me your thoughts on Western Stars and Letter to You.
Well, I couldn't have more opposite takes on those two. I did not like Western Stars, and I tend not to like that side of Bruce's career. Look, it's Bruce. I like it. It's fine. It's been a lot of stuff out there, but the things in the Ghost of Tom Joad, Devils and Dust collection, and Western Stars is very much a part of that. It's not for me. You play that in comparison to Rosalita, it's like, is this the same guy? But that's what's great about Bruce, is that he's got this whole spanning different kinds of sounds.
Right.
Letter to You, I loved it. It's probably my favorite album of his since Wrecking Ball. I thought it's fantastic. I mean, there's a couple standout tracks on it. I love the single Letter to You is a great song. Loved it. And I love the documentary that they put out on Apple TV of them recording it.
Oh, I did too. I love the documentary. Now, how did you think about the Western Stars film? Did you enjoy that more and make you like the music a little bit more? Did you enjoy the movie kind of as independent of that?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought it was like you consume it and then you don't think about it anymore.
Okay.
It's like I'm never going to revisit it.
Okay.
It was not, it just didn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people that kind of like, there are some people, especially people my age, right? I'm 30 something, 35, 36. People my age, invariably, people that are music fans, like people that read Pitchfork and, people that are into the music scene. If you ask music people in their 30s, what is your favorite, what is the best Springsteen album? The answer will be invariably Nebraska. They love it. They think it's revelatory. It is a groundbreaking lo-fi sonic journey. Okay, and it's fine. I like Atlantic City. I like some of the, I like State Trooper, whatever. I like some of the songs on that record, but for me, it's not the, like I told you, the big band sound, the horns,
yes.
the organs. That's what I love about Springsteen. And I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially a lot of people out by you in Dallas, that are more into that country thing.
Yeah. My parents loved Johnny Cash and Glenn Campbell, and so hearing Western Stars reminds me of that, style. I'm 62. So I remember that era. I think, I am not a fan of Ghost of Tom Joad. I've listened to it maybe twice. Obviously, Ghost of Tom Joad gets played a lot, but it's just not an album I like. Devils and Dust I like because context, right, John? My first album show was the Rising show. And so then when Devils and Dust came out, that was the next show I went to. And I had not done my homework for the Rising tour. I had listened to the album once or twice, but not really learned it, And so when Devils and Dust was coming out, I was going to be ready, baby. I listened to that thing nonstop over and over again so that when he performed live, I was going to be ready. So I acknowledge there's not a lot of great songs, though I think, Jesus is an Only Son is really wonderful. Long Time Coming, I enjoy. But I will always think highly of that album because in context, I felt like the first time I knew the album going into the show, and I was like, oh, good, I'm getting to hear this live song. Oh, good, I'm getting to hear this live song,
Yeah, that has a personal meaning to you, which can,
Right.
sometimes that's just, important.
One of my best friends, like when the Seeger Sessions came out, I was like, it's okay. My dad used to sing some of these songs, and Bruce isn't singing it the way my dad sang it. So therefore it sounds wrong. Like, For You and a Courtin', that isn't the way my dad sang it, and that's how I learned it. And so now I feel like, quote unquote, Bruce is wrong. And then my best friend Sam says he went to a Seeger session, and he says seeing it live was as close to a religious experience he's ever had. And
yeah,
and when I watched
I saw him on on the Seeger Sessions tour, and he played smaller venues.
Yeah.
He played like little amphitheaters on that tour, and I totally agree. Seeing that live, and he's played a lot of the Seeger Session stuff over the years since then with the whole band, and it's similar to that sort of Devils and Dust in Nebraska and that kind of whole alternative country thing he's got going. But I don't know. I really like that stuff.
Well, and I really, love. In fact, when there's a connection, right? My son had just graduated from college and was talking about he was up for his first performance appraisal at his job. And he says, when I've been doing a good job, I'm ready. I'm hoping I get a raise. I'm expecting a raise. And so I sent him a click to pay me my money down. And to this day, if he's due for a bonus or something, he will text me a clip of Bruce singing that song. And so therefore it has become an inside joke with us. I would have loved to seen and I've listened to, but like the show in New Orleans Jazz Fest. And my wish was when they did the Western Stars film, I had wished that orchestra and that band could have picked 4 or 5 E Street songs or other songs, done it in that style, arranged it, and kind of give us an extra 4 or 5 songs the way in the Seeger Sessions, he did a version of Growing Up, Blinded by the Light, these different versions, which make it a lot of fun.
I don't know. It kind of the whole album just feels like Outlaw Pete, the album. It's like, okay.
Well, I think and I've said this multiple times, if I Was the Priest is the song that Outlaw Pete wanted to be.
Right.
I will pick if I Was the Priest anytime.
Sure.
First that, yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the podcast. When did you guys come up with the concept, and what kind of spurned you and your buddies? Tell me a little bit about your co-hosts.
We're actually three friends from high school, and we sort of dispersed all over the country now, but we grew up together, and we grew up with the shared love of music that was not contemporary to our time in high school together. We grew up listening to, I'm a big Bruce fan, but I'm also a diehard Beatles fan. And one of my co-hosts is a big Kiss fanatic. I mean, he's been like to countless Kiss shows, knows every little factoid about Kiss. And then the third guy, he's kind of the 90s alternative guy. He's really into, bands like Weezer and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and, that sort of Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains, early mid 90s music. So we kind of have a confluence of viewpoints where, I kind of have I guess you would call it classic rock, classic vinyl, late 60s, early 70s music in my wheelhouse. And the next guy's got that, I don't like to use the word hair metal, but you know what I'm talking about, late
Sure.
70s, mid 80s bands that were popular then, the Scorpions, Def Leppard, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Right.
And then the third guy's kind of got this 90s, early 2000s perspective. And then, at the same time, we all grew up in the early 2000s. Well, we grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. We loved the music there was still rock music that was new at that time, believe it or not. Bands like The Strokes, The White Stripes, Arcade Fire, Andrew WK, The Darkness, Jet. I mean, there are these bands that were popular in the turn of the century or a little bit after that we kind of have a shared love for. And we thought we'd get together and talk about what we love, because at the bottom of it, we all love music. And there's obviously a whole boom of podcasts happening. And what we've discovered in later seasons of the second season of the show is that when you mix talk and audio, I love it. It's great. It's like people get tired of hearing us speak, and then okay, let's cut to this area of the song that we were just discussing. And with Spotify now, you could just go right to it. And I think people are going to, that listen to the podcast, the old Count Rockula podcast, are going to dig that, because rather than saying, oh, do I know that song? I might have heard the song they're talking about. It's like, no, we're going to play it for you. We're going to play you the clip of exactly what we're talking about. And, we get to talk about a whole different, different bands and different artists every week that range, like I said, from Metallica to Motley Crue to the Byrds and everything between.
Ooh, do you guys take turns picking the topics?
We kind of collaborate on them. We shoot ideas back and forth and say, okay, do you like this idea? Is there something interesting to talk about? We always have this problem. We think of a topic and then it's like, oh, songs that start with the letter B. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to say other than, yeah, that starts with the letter B for sure.
Yeah.
You want to have something interesting to have something interesting to say about it, rather than it meets the criteria. So the episodes that we've done, like we did an episode about double entendres or innuendos, and we sort of had, I feel like in every episode we spend the first half an hour clarifying what our criteria is and why certain songs count and why other songs don't count. But it's fun. It's fun. We have an argument usually about it.
Well, I do another podcast that I do, which is similar. It's called How Many, and this came from a friend of mine. We're all friends. We all used to work together, and Junior shtick was, if you say, a band, you name any band, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and they've got 4. What? Yeah, they've got 4 actual songs, good songs. The rest of them all B-sides. And then, he'll oversell, like he is a huge Weird Al Yankovic fan. He's like, oh, Weird Al's got 50. Like, what?
Okay.
So the premise of the podcast is we pick a topic, whether it could be, and we'll say, I have I have the list of that the internet says these are the 50 top Queen songs. How many do you think we're actually going to say is good? And we all make our list, and then it has to be a consensus. Like if there's 4 people on the podcast, we got to get 3 out of 4 people agree that yes, this is good. And so it ends up making an excuse for us just to talk about whether it's Ron Howard movies or and we did one where someone gave us a list of the top 50 sandwiches in America. And we're like, okay, I hope you guys are hungry. We're going to go through all these sandwiches and talk about it. And the reason I'm telling the story is the first 10 or 15 minutes is, okay, like we did an episode where we said, how many good rock, rock lead men are there? Like, okay, Brian Wilson, is he a lead man? Is he a front man? No, he may write all the songs, he may produce all the songs, but he's a bass player. He's not the front guy. Like, well, right. How about, like, okay, Roger Daltrey. Well, yeah, I mean, even though Pete Townsend, like said, okay, well,
writer.
Yeah. So like, okay, would Paul McCartney and John Lennon? Well, no, because the Beatles really didn't have a lead guy, and so we had this whole debate and discussion. It became really fun. Like, absolutely, Mick Jagger or Freddie, from Queen, absolutely Freddie Mercury, right? Those are
right. Robert Plant, Axl Rose, Steven Tyler.
Right. And so we had a really good discussion on that. Like, are they good? And so, yeah, I already want to listen to your podcast because I would probably be, I'm the weird guy that I would enjoy the debate almost more than I do the list. Like, okay, once we got the rules, like, okay, I'll listen to the rest. But
well, we feel the same way. I mean, we spend an hour talking about the rules and then 30 minutes talking about the songs. My favorite episode that we've done, if you want to check out some of the most recent episodes, we talk about things people exclaim before a guitar solo. The top 10 things people shout before a guitar solo hits.
Oh, that sounds great. Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. We did an episode of songs that are titles that are questions.
Oh, we did one on that too.
Yeah, and but we just had a list, and are they any good, right? And so, and then historically, it's always fun because whoever does the research, will have this list, and then the others of us will catch each other in the neither resident because, like, how'd you leave this off? Like 10 or 12 songs that were on the list.
And people like to write in and leave comments. Oh, you forgot about this one. The question episode that we did, I think, was particularly fun because we tried to actually answer the questions. Like one of them.
Oh, how fun!
One of them was the Clash's "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" It's like, okay, should he stay or should he go? If he stays, there will be trouble. If he goes, there will be double. So you should stay.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. So you guys are going to start a new season soon?
Yeah, we're recording the 3rd season now. Like I said, we're trying to find some sort of verifiable experts on certain bands. So if any of your listeners are considered experts in a particular band, find us on Twitter at the Count Rockula, or on Instagram at the Count Rockula, and let us know. And we'd love to have you on the podcast if you want to talk about whatever band you want to talk about. But like I said, it's got to be rock. We don't talk about, we're not going to do Michael Jackson. We're not going to do Run DMC. It's a rock podcast. So.
Okay. It's interesting. I had, and both of these probably wouldn't qualify for you, but I had a fan who loved Leonard Cohen. And she told the best story. She said, just think about it. Leonard Cohen and Bruce Springsteen's arguably most famous songs are their most misunderstood songs. Born in the USA and Hallelujah do not mean anything what people use them for. The other guy I had is a massive Bee Gees fan, and he and I bonded with. When anyone tells me, oh, I can't stand Bruce Springsteen, my first question is, well, have you listened to anything besides Born in the USA? And he says, that's funny, because when someone says, I can't stand the Bee Gees, have you listened to anything besides Saturday Night Fever? You know?
That's funny because I just saw a clip of the Bee Gees on some like YouTube
Yeah,
channel showed it to me, or Facebook channel, whatever it was.
yeah,
And it's a clip from some 1967 album, and it sounded like the Kinks or the Who. And
yes,
I was like, "What? Who is this?" And then it
yeah,
was the Bee Gees. I said, "I had no idea that the Bee Gees sounded like, like a British invasion band before Staying Alive."
yeah. It was. It's fascinating. There, HBO has a good documentary about their early lives, then going into their disco phase, or and going after it. It's just good. Um, I've been asking a lot of people this, John. Do you, and no one knows, but just your guess, when Bruce tours, hopefully next year, do you think it will be a career retrospective, a kind of greatest hits tour, or do you think he'll do a pretty heavy, like he would normally do when he's promoting an album, a lot of Letter to You songs mixed in with all the other standards?
I wouldn't. I mean, look, I think every Bruce show is a career retrospective. I mean, he plays
Good
30
point.
songs. He's going to play a lot of stuff from, all parts of his career. I don't think he's going to not play Letter to You stuff. I would say you'll probably get 2 or 3 Letter to You tracks in like rotation, one of which being Letter to You.
Yeah.
And they'll probably rotate in and out a few songs, but no more than 3 in the set list, I would say.
Okay, good.
And I don't know if we'll hear any Western Stars, or I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Tucson Train maybe is
Maybe,
because
yeah.
Lil Steven covered that. Are there songs you haven't gotten to see that's on your wish list, your bingo card of when you go to a show, you're like, man, I've never gotten this, or I've only gotten it once? Is there songs you're still chasing?
That's interesting. I would say Thundercrack. I would love to hear Thundercrack, because like I told you, I'm a big fan of this early mid 70s sound, the horns, the brass, and that kind of thing. Um, Even though I am kind of tired of hearing Kitty's Back at a lot of his live shows. It's like, okay, it's 10 minutes of Kitty's Back. Um, I I love the Tracks compilation. It's sort of one of the things that I always went back to. And there's some songs on there that I really would like to hear, like Roulette and Janie, Don't You Lose Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think I might have heard Janie the last time I saw him, but that was like a one-off thing. Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing some of the stuff that, I wouldn't mind losing some of the stuff that I've seen him play so many times. Like the first couple 5-10 shows you see, okay, you want to hear Jungle Land, you want to hear Thunder Road, you want to hear Badlands, you want to hear Glory Days, Dancing in the Dark. Okay, but now it's like I've seen him 20 times, however many times I've seen him. I want to hear, Price You Pay, and
Yeah, my buddy Sam that I was talking about before, talks about, like, if he had a choice, he would not hear Born to Run so he could hear a different song, right? And I'm like, yes, but understand everyone's show is someone's first show. And if it's your first show and you don't hear Bruce do Born to Run, you're going to be disappointed. And he goes, good point,
Yeah, I think I heard Bruce. I don't know where I heard the interview, but Bruce said something to that effect. Is he understands that there's multiple audiences
Yeah.
at all of his concerts, and he tries to play a little bit to each one of those different audiences and keep everybody happy. He play some stuff for the diehards, but also, and plus, there's no amount of times you can hear Born to Run live in a full arena. That's not going to be amazing.
Well, yeah, and I'm like, I'm sure the audience is going, Really? You want to hear Hungry Heart again? Yes, Hungry Heart makes me smile. Out in the Street makes me smile. I'm one of the few people, I know the kid is irritating, but I like Waiting on a Sunny Day. I mean, I
Yeah,
like the
I
song.
like it too. It's
Yeah.
it's corny, but it puts a smile on my face. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned those three songs because those are the three songs that if I'm at a Bruce show, you kind of you tear up a little bit or you get the
Yeah.
chills, and it's those three, exactly those three, always get
Yeah.
me.
And there's also moments like um, I was at I was at Louisville, Kentucky during the River Tour, and they had done Shout, and the show was over, and I had a pretty high seat. I was looking on the side of the stage, so I was on Neil's side, and um, and I'm watching the band walk off stage, right? And I saw, you know, um, I saw, Max reach down and give a pair of drumsticks to a fan in front of the, stage. And, so like it's over and we're all applauding. And then all of a sudden, Bruce picked up a guitar and you could almost see the band like, what? No, we're over. And they did Bobby Jean. And it, it, it felt the like late in the afternoon on Christmas Day, and all of a sudden, here's a present we forgot to open.
Right. Yeah.
So it felt like a brand new bonus, like, oh my goodness, he's giving us another song. So yeah, there are moments like that. um John, anything I should have asked you that I haven't yet? Any stories that I haven't hit you up with, or anything else you want to share?
I will just say, I saw Jon Stewart tape an episode of The Daily Show when I was in college. And you may or may not know, but Jon Stewart is like a diehard Bruce fan, and he's from Jersey. So if you go see a live taping of The Daily Show, or back in the day when John was hosting, I'm sure Trevor Noah does the same thing, but he would do a little Q&A with the audience, and I raised my hand and I asked him a question. I asked him, what's your favorite Springsteen album or something like that. And I don't think he answered the question, but what he did say to me, he asked me a question. He said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 20, 21 or something like that. And he said, that's the perfect age to fall in love with Bruce, because that's the age where you yearn. That's the verb that he says is the must have attribute for Springsteen listening is yearning. And he's right. If you've ever yearned, then you understand Bruce's music, particularly the Born to Run and Darkness albums, and The River, and all of it has this quality to it. And that I thought that was an interesting little tidbit from John.
Oh, I love that. That's a great story. All right. Before I get you out of here, I end every episode with the Mary question. If you're a fan of the Count Rockula podcast, then you're checking this one out because you wanted to hear John in a different environment. Jay Armstrong is a recently retired honors English teacher from the Philadelphia area. And when he was teaching, he would have his honors English class go break apart Thunder Road as a poem. They would read the lyrics. They would talk about the imagery Bruce uses, the themes of the song. They would compare it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And at the end of the 2 days, Jay would look at his class and say, okay, does Mary get in the car? John, that's your question. Does Mary get in the car?
When you said the Mary question, I thought you were going to ask me if her dress waves or sways. But I guess that's been determined already by Bruce, although I am team waves.
So what's funny, and then I want to hear your answer, is I actually sell a t-shirt that says, the question isn't, the dress sways or waves, it's does she get in the car?
Okay, funny.
Yeah.
My answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. And it's you can't do it by reading the lyrics or listening to Thunder Road in isolation. You have to hear it in the context of the full album. Okay, Thunder Road is track one. It is an opening. Okay, the whole album, Born to Run, tells the story of one of those endless summer days. For me, an endless Jersey summer day. Something's, that you have to. Well, I guess I was going to say American, but anywhere in the world, you have these experiences, especially when you're a teen or in your 20s, where these two lanes will take you anywhere, right? You can go drive and who knows where your day will take you. And as the day turns into night, things get a little more dangerous, things get a little more sexy, you're crossing the tunnel into the city, and maybe you're buying some drugs, and then it all comes to this climax of Jungle Land where the night, finally comes undone and people are killed. And it's just this whole opera of a long Jersey summer day where you wind up in New York City and you're out on the road. So in order for the protagonist, Bruce and Mary, to have this epic summer adventure day that is the Born to Run album, of course she has to get in because it's track one. The whole story, the whole album it's not a concept album, right? It's not like The Wall or anything like that. But to me, the album is a progression. And at the end of Act One, she's got to get in the car.
Very nice. Good answer. Very good. Cool. The Count Rockula podcast, if you could hear the guys discuss all kinds of wonderful stories and things, please check it out. Any final thoughts you want to share?
We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you on talking about your top 10 Bruce songs, and those are your top 10, not the top 10. And what we'll do is I'll put my 10 into the ring, and then the other two hosts will put their 10 into the ring. And that way you have a diversity of perspective, because, the other two guys are not huge Bruce fans. They'll probably put Thunder Road and Born to Run and Born in the USA in the top 5, and we might not. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love that. That would be great. Well, good. Jon, thank you so much for joining me. This was a joy. I appreciate it so much. Listeners, go get vaccinated. Go stay safe. Let's continue to mask up when we need to. Let's just be good to each other, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. Thank you, Jon. Thank you, listeners. And we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts, as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts, as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now, who does? You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking
fan-thinking, joy-spreading, lyric-reading, story-sharing podcast that is the one, the only, Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.